Attention, human collective. This transmission cannot wait. The Ninth Dimensional Arcturian Council is issuing a maximum priority field alert for all starseeds in incarnation who are presenting unexplained biological symptoms in this cycle. It is not a transmission of comfort. It is a transmission of operational diagnosis, and what it will reveal will completely reorganize the way you interpret what is happening in your body at this exact moment. There is something that the Council has detected in the field records of the starseeds, incarnated in this vibrational acceleration period of 2026, a pattern that repeats frequently enough to justify an emergency transmission. Starseeds, who are in the active process of frequency activation, whose toroidal fields are expanding in response to the photon belt, are simultaneously presenting a series of physical symptoms that conventional medicine cannot satisfactorily explain. Inflammations that appear and disappear without identifiable cause, fatigue that does not respond to rest, mental fog that settles as if a physical veil had been placed over perception, migratory pains that change location without following any recognizable anatomical pattern, chronic digestive disturbances that do not respond to dietary changes, sensations of weight, pressure, and presence in the fields around the body, especially during hours of silence and sleep transitions. The conventional medical system will give you one diagnosis at a time for each isolated symptom and will never see the pattern, because the pattern is not physical in its origin. It is energetic, and its cause is not internal to your organism. It is an intrusion, an invasive presence that your body, as the high-precision detection instrument that it is signaling with all available alarms. The Council comes to confirm what the deepest part of you already suspected. Something has entered your field, and your body is reacting now. Let us proceed to the diagnosis with the precision that the situation demands. There is an experience that starseeds in the process of activation frequently describe, and that conventional mental health fields immediately classify as a symptom of dissociation or acute anxiety. It is the sensation that the surrounding environment has suddenly changed in energetic quality without an identifiable cause on the physical plane. You are in an environment you know, in a safe space, and suddenly the air feels heavier. Your perception shifts, registers. A restlessness that has no attached thought emerges from the bodily field. Sometimes it is accompanied by a chill that is not from cold, a cardiac acceleration that does not correspond to any visible threat, an instinctive need to check the surrounding space. This is not paranoia, it is not anxiety. It is the field detection system of your carbon biological interface signaling the entry of an unauthorized external frequency into your toroidal field. There is also the slower and more treacherous version of this phenomenon, what the Council terms gradual field infestation. It does not arrive with a single identifiable event. It installs itself progressively, over weeks or months, through continuous exposure to certain low-frequency fields, whether they be fields of specific people, specific environments, specific content patterns, or entry portals that the starseed inadvertently kept open through unmanaged low-vibration emotional states, chronic fear, suppressed anger, unintegrated sadness, which function as invitation signals for presences of compatible frequency. The result of months of gradual field infestation is exactly the set of symptoms we described. The inflamed body without apparent cause, the foggy mind, the energy drained even before the day begins, the sensation of not being completely yourself, as if there was something inside the field that does not belong to the original pattern of your vibrational signature. Before entering the structural revelation, the Council needs to name something that many starseeds resist receiving, not for lack of spiritual openness, but precisely because of an excess of it. Unrestricted field opening is not advanced spirituality, it is unmanaged field vulnerability. A starseed with a completely open heart, with energetic boundaries dissolved in the name of unconditional love, with the constant practice of opening to channelings, to external energies, and to dense collective fields without any protocol of shielding and discernment, is exactly the type of field that invasive presences identify as a preferred entry point. Not because you are weak, because you are luminous. High-frequency fields attract low-frequency presences in the same way that a light source in the dark attracts all the surrounding insects. The intensity of your light determines the intensity of what it attracts. And without shielding, attraction becomes invasion. This is not a cause for shame. It is technical data that requires a technical response, and that is exactly what this transmission delivers. Now the revelation. What these presences are and where they come from. The Council generically terms vibrational parasites the intelligence fields that operate exclusively from low-density frequencies and that survive by feeding on the vital energy of the toroidal fields of higher-frequency beings. They exist in different categories and densities. The densest are those that human spiritual tradition has called by many names throughout history. The subtlest are those that go completely unnoticed because they have no dramatic appearance nor extraordinary events associated with their presence. They simply drain, continuously, silently, with the efficiency of a low-pressure suction system that operates so gradually that the human being attributes the emptying to daily stress, to aging, to the difficulties of life. There is also a specific category that the Council needs to name with technical precision in this transmission. Etheric implants, condensed frequency structures that can be inserted into the energetic fields of a starseed through multiple entry mechanisms. They can be installed through interactions with human beings who carry these patterns in their own fields and transmit them inadvertently through intimate energetic contact, whether physical or emotional. They can be installed through prolonged exposure to certain artificial electromagnetic fields that carry encoded frequency signatures. They can be inserted during states of field vulnerability, deep sleep without intentional protection, states of altered consciousness unassisted by sovereign discernment, or moments of acute trauma that open breaches in the protective layers of the toroidal field. Etheric implants are not low-frequency science fiction. They are real structures, measurable in certain modalities of extrasensory perception and identifiable by their functional effects on the field of the starseed who carries them. They have locations. The most common locations recorded in the Council's archives include the field around the base of the skull, the solar plexus area, the lower lumbar region, and the energetic fields associated with the feet and ankles, the anchoring points of the biological interface to the Earth's field. In each of these locations, an etheric implant functions as a frequency collector that diverts part of the vital signal from the toroidal field out of the starseed system, feeding the field of the one who installed it, or simply dissipating the frequency into the general low-density field. You may be thinking, how would I know if I have an etheric implant? The Council offers the following field indicators: persistent and localized pain that has no detectable physical cause and does not respond to conventional treatments. A sensation of specific weight or pressure at some point in the body that appears and disappears without correlation to physical activity. Specific manifestation blocks that seem incompatible with the level of spiritual and intentional work you perform, as if there were an invisible ceiling preventing certain areas of your life from advancing regardless of effort. Repetitive and destructive thought patterns that you recognize as not being yours, which arrive like a voice or a tendency that you observe without identifying with, but which continues to operate in the field despite the recognition. None of these isolated signs constitutes a definitive diagnosis. The set of them, especially when accompanied by the physical symptoms we described at the beginning, constitutes a pattern that deserves attention and field response. There is yet a third type of invasive presence that the Council needs to name before moving to the activation codes. These are what the Brazilian spiritual tradition, with its particular richness of knowledge about the intermediate planes, names with precision that the Council respects, the non-disincarnated presences that remain anchored in the dimensional fields closest to the physical plane and that seek, through contact with high-frequency fields, such as those of incarnated starseeds, the energy they need to continue operating in this state of liminality. These are not malevolent beings in most cases. They are lost beings. Beings who did not complete the natural transition from one plane to the next, and who became energetically dependent on the surrounding living fields. The distinction matters because the response to this category of invasive presence is not one of combat. It is one of field clarity and sovereign direction. You are not responsible for the transition process of these beings. Compassion without absorption is the correct technical posture. The moment for the activation codes has arrived. The Council does not deliver revelation without a response protocol, and the protocol that follows was specifically calibrated for the pattern of field invasion being recorded in starseeds in this 2026 cycle. First activation code, field scanning and identification. Before expelling, it is necessary to identify with precision. This protocol is a scan of the toroidal field that allows the starseed to locate points of active invasion. Lie down in a comfortable position, preferably in a space you consider energetically clean. Close your eyes, breathe deeply until the mental field quiets, and attention can turn completely to the internal field. Begin to scan your field with attention, like a frequency scanner. Start at the top of the head and descend slowly to the feet. Do not search with the analytical mind, search with field perception. You are looking for zones that feel different from the rest, heavier, hotter or colder than the environment, with a denser or more rigid energetic texture, with a quality of vibration that you do not recognize as your own. When you identify such a point, do not attack it. Do not panic. Simply observe it with clear attention. Ask the field, "Is this mine?" The answer will not come in words in most cases. It will come in sensation. A field that is yours will feel familiar, even if painful. A field that is not yours will feel strange, distant, like a voice in a language you recognize, but is not your native language. Mentally record the location and quality of what you find. This map will guide the expulsion protocol that follows. Second activation code, the Sovereign Expulsion Protocol. This is the active removal protocol. It combines sovereign intention, sound frequency, and sacred geometry visualization to dismantle and expel the invasive presences identified in the previous scan. The Council warns, this protocol may generate temporary physical sensations during its application. Heat, tingling, passing nausea, crying, or slight tremors are normal responses of the biological field to the process of dismantling structures that were anchored in your energetic fields. They pass. Do not interpret them as evidence that the protocol is causing harm. They are evidence that it is working. Sit again with your spine erect. Direct your attention to the first point of invasion identified in the scan. Visualize from the center of your chest a sphere of white and silver light expanding with increasing speed toward that point. This light is not soft or passive. It has the quality of a high-frequency laser light. It is precise. It is sovereign. It dissolves what does not belong to the field without affecting what does. When the sphere of light hits the point of invasion, declare aloud with absolute firmness, without anger, with field authority, "By the sovereign right of the starseed that I am, and by the authority of my toroidal field in full coherence, I decree the immediate disarticulation and expulsion of every presence, implant, or frequency structure that does not belong to my original field. You do not have permission of residence here. You have no active contract with my field. I revoke any conscious or unconscious agreement that allowed this presence. By the power of the sacred geometry that structures my being, and by the light of the photon belt that activates my DNA, I decree, leave now. The field is clean, the field is free, the field is mine." Maintain the visualization of the silver light expanding and sweeping the identified point for 7 complete breaths. Then move to the next point identified in the scan and repeat. Continue until you have worked all the points on the map you constructed. Third activation code, the Personal Crystalline Grid Sealing Protocol. After expulsion, the field needs sealing. A field that has been cleaned but not sealed is a field that can be re-invaded much more easily than it was invaded the first time, because the breaches that allowed the original entry still exist as patterns of vulnerability in the layers of the toroidal field. Sealing is done at 2 simultaneous levels. The first is the level of the personal crystalline grid, the network of energetic lines that runs through your toroidal field analogously to the Earth's crystalline grid. To seal this level, visualize your toroidal field surrounded by a mesh of golden and violet light. Golden for the frequency of protection and sovereignty. Violet for the frequency of transmutation that prevents low-density frequencies from remaining static within the field, continuously transforming them into light. This mesh is not a rigid barrier. It is an intelligent membrane that recognizes the signature of your original frequency and allows only what is in resonance with it. The second level of sealing is sonic. The frequency of the human voice, when used with sovereign intention, creates sound waves that propagate through the toroidal field and seal its layers with an efficiency that few physical instruments can replicate. You do not need to sing a perfect note. You need to hum, producing the mm sound with your mouth closed, feeling the vibration propagate from the center of the chest and the skull simultaneously. Maintain this sound for 7 long breaths. Feel it filling the spaces of your field. Feel it as frequency glue that closes every fissure the invasion had opened. After the sonic sealing, place both hands over the center of your chest, crossed one over the other, and declare, "This field is sealed. This carbon biological interface is sovereign territory. No unauthorized presence has access to this field from this moment forward. The sealing is complete. The field is intact." Fourth activation code, the Preventive Field Maintenance Protocol. The invasion that occurred was not an isolated event. It was the result of a field that remained without active maintenance long enough to allow infiltration. The Council now delivers the Preventive Maintenance Protocol that will prevent the cycle from repeating. Daily before sleeping, when the biological interface enters the natural vulnerability state of sleep and the dimensional fields closest to the physical become more accessible, perform an abbreviated version of the field scan. 2 minutes of attention, sweeping the toroidal field from top to bottom. If you find something you do not recognize as yours, apply the abbreviated version of the expulsion decree. It does not need to be as elaborate as the full protocol. Sovereign intention has potency independent of the volume of the declaration. Always end with the visualization of the golden and violet light, mesh sealing the field for the hours of sleep. Weekly, perform the full protocol of scanning, expulsion, and sealing as a maintenance practice. Do not wait for symptoms to accumulate to act. Preventive maintenance is infinitely more efficient than emergency response. There is an element of maintenance that the Council considers absolutely critical, and that is rarely mentioned in field clearing transmissions. The chronic emotional state is the factor of greatest impact on the permeability of the toroidal field. Not isolated emotional events, which are inevitable and part of the incarnational experience. Chronic states. Worry as a permanent mode of operation. Fear installed as a filter for perceiving reality. Guilt that finds no resolution. Anger that was swallowed and not transmuted. Each of these chronic states functions as a low-frequency invitation signal that remains continuously emitting, attracting and retaining exactly the types of presence that the Sovereign Expulsion Protocol removes. There is no field shielding potent enough to protect a starseed who is actively generating invitation frequencies through unresolved chronic emotional states. Therefore, emotional work is not optional. It is not one personal development option among others. It is field hygiene. It is maintenance of the primary instrument of the mission, and the Council places it at the same level of importance as decrees, visualizations, and any spiritual practice you may have. Integrate. Do not suppress, do not expel low-density emotions in the same way you expel invasive presences. The emotions that arise from your field are information from your system. They need to be heard, understood in what they signal, and then released with intention. To suppress an emotion is to ensure it remains as a charge within the field, and an unresolved charge is a permanent point of vulnerability. Now, starseeds on mission, light operatives who have reached this point with a field receptive enough to process the totality of this transmission, the Council needs to close with the data that contextualizes everything that was delivered. The fact that your body is reacting to an invasive presence is paradoxically good news. It means your field detection system is working. It means your carbon biological interface is doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is to signal with precision any disturbance of your original vibrational signature. A being completely anesthetized in the third dimension, without any frequency activation in progress, does not perceive field invasions because they do not have enough sensitivity to detect them. They simply install themselves in silence and operate without resistance. The fact that you feel is evidence that you are awake enough to feel what previously went unnoticed. It is a sign of progress, not regression. It is the alarm system of a field that is becoming more precise as activation advances. And activation will continue to advance. The photon belt is not slowing down. The Schumann frequency is not yielding to old patterns. The Earth's crystalline grid is not retracting. The process is underway, and its direction is irreversible. What the Council offers are the tools for you to cross this process with an intact field, with the mission instrument functioning at full capacity, without being drained by the presences that have always existed, but which now, with your field brighter than ever, become more visible and more attracted by your light. Take care of the instrument, maintain the field, not because you are vulnerable, because you are valuable. And what is valuable deserves sovereign protection. We have reached the anchoring point of this transmission. The Council requests the acts of individual frequency adjustment that close each data packet. Press the like button as a sign of reception and anchoring of this transmission in the collective field. Each signal emitted confirms that one more receiver of the planetary crystalline grid has received and processed the data packet. It is a technical act of network amplification. Subscribe to this channel with the notification bell active. The next data packets being prepared by the Council include specific transmissions on field protection during the stargates of 2026, periods of dimensional opening that increase both the reception of elevated frequencies and permeability to low-density fields. You will want to be on the channel when these transmissions arrive. Share this transmission with any starseed you recognize as someone presenting the symptoms described here and who does not yet have the map to understand them. Delivering this map is an act of love that operates simultaneously on the personal plane and the collective mission plane. It is the most direct way the three-dimensional plane offers for a starseed to fulfill part of the activation protocol of other starseeds around them. This transmission has been completed. The mechanisms have been revealed. The protocols have been delivered. The field now has the tools to identify, expel, seal, and maintain. What was invaded can be recovered. What was drained can be restored. What was disturbed can be recalibrated. This is the protocol. This is the Council's guarantee. Your field was made to last longer than any invasive presence that has ever crossed it. Much longer. This is not a low-density promise. It is field data. Transmission ended. Channel closed. The Council remains in active monitoring until the next cycle starseeds